Good morning and welcome to Rising. Happy Monday. We've got a great show for you today. Good morning, Lindsey. Nice to see you.
Good morning. They were making fun of me earlier, saying I look like I'm in a Snuggie.
You're just trying to keep warm on this set.
It's so cold on this set. This is the only time that this outfit will be appropriate. It's very comfortable.
I think our viewers probably get sick of me saying this, but it is really cold in this room.
It is. I feel like it's so much easier for guys to get dressed in a work situation like this. I told you how many outfits I have, and you're like, wait, what?
You know how many outfits I have? Like 3.
I know. That's the problem. I wish this makes me wish I could,
yeah.
I just should wear suits. I should just start doing that.
I need a warm sweater to add to my wardrobe, I think. Well, we've got a lot to get to today. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has announced her resignation from Congress. That took us by surprise.
And President Donald Trump has a seemingly amicable meeting with New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani on Friday.
Also taking us by surprise. Also, some Trump officials are under fire for their handling of a Russia-Ukraine peace plan. We'll debate that.
But first, let's get this party started right. Robby, what's on your radar?
Been looking forward to this. Location, location, location. That's what matters now on X, because Elon Musk has just rolled out a hugely important new feature, and it's confirming what some of us have suspected was the case for some time now. It turns out that many of the openly racist and anti-Semitic accounts on X that claim to be America First but are actually giving MAGA a bad name, well, they're not true America First at all. In fact, they're largely coming from Pakistan and other Muslim countries. And now we have the proof. A week ago, Fox News personality Katie Pavlich, friend of mine, posted this on X. Hey, Elon Musk, please make it mandatory that wherever an account is based, country, be featured in an account's public profile. Foreign bots are tearing America apart. Thank you. In response, Nikita Beer, head of product development at X, said, give me 72 hours. And now, X has delivered. Now, when you click on an X profile, there is an option to see more information about that account. It says account based in, and then lists the country or region. My account, for instance, says based in the United States because I was in the United States when I created it and have posted the vast majority of my X content while in the United States. But the same cannot be said for a great many accounts that purport to be America First. You know the ones I'm talking about. They often have that stupid Pepe the Frog character as their avatar. They promote Nick Fuentes and complain that the Jews have taken over the U.S. They whine about America at every turn while purporting to be America First. And they openly avow racist ideas, but because they have American flags in their bios, the mainstream media mistakes them for MAGA. Liberals point to these accounts and say, see, here's the evidence that Trump's base, the MAGA movement, is racist and is anti-Semitic to its core. Just look at these accounts. Well, guess what? Now we know. A substantial number of them are based in the Middle East, Pakistan in particular. They're not MAGA or America First. They're cosplaying as America First in order to discredit MAGA and make money. As conservative journalist Joel Pollack points out, this is an extensive foreign interference campaign intended to drive a wedge within the MAGA movement to the benefit of hostile foreign Islamic regimes. And conservative pundit Matt Walsh notes on X, tons of commentary on divisive American culture war issues is coming from foreigners whose opinions on international U.S. policy can be safely ignored. End quote. Even some liberals who've tracked harassment and hate online are now giving Elon massive props for unmasking all these foreign accounts. Jared Holt, a researcher on hate and extremism who's been very critical of Musk in the past, writes this on X. Honest to God, Elon Musk letting people see what country accounts are based in is one of the few good things he has done with this platform. Culture war clickbait is mass-produced by people overseas. It's always been that way. It's low-effort, hateful content, easy money. Now, to be clear, it's not just these faux right-wing pro-Fuentes Groyper accounts getting exposed. X accounts promoting the grievances of various ethnic groups have also been exposed as false. There's plenty of pro-Native American advocacy that's been exposed as originating from Bangladesh, for instance. And it's also the case that some X accounts purporting to be from dying or starving Palestinian children in Gaza actually originates in India or Qatar or North Africa. Now, that does not mean there are no dying children in Gaza, to be clear. It does mean that what we've seen and consumed on X is, in some cases, a form of manipulation. The question you might be asking yourself is, why? Why are people in Pakistan and India and Qatar and Bangladesh, Nigeria and elsewhere trying to sell us division and racism? Why are people who hate each other trying to convince us, Americans, that we also hate each other Why are they trying to inflict upon us political discourse, inflict upon our political discourse a crude and inauthentic racial and religious hatred? Well, the answer is self-apparent. It's because they want America to fail. They want us to weaken. They want us to descend into infighting. They want us to start pointing fingers and scream in each other's faces. They want us to fall behind. And it's not just about culture. There's an organization, for instance, called Americans for Responsible Innovation that tries to sabotage U.S. tech developments by supporting regulations that would ensure that China, and not the U.S., wins the AI race. Guess what? That account is based in Germany. Maybe we should stop taking advice from foreign powers on what our tech policy should be. Just a thought. In any case, we must shut out the foreign racists and anti-Semites who pretend to be America first. They are not America first. They're not American. And they are not serving America's interests.
Well, in many ways, I think X, to me, got worse since Elon Musk took over, as far as like seeing a rise in some of the anti-Semitism, racism, and stuff that we've seen. Kudos to Elon Musk for following through with the request and making these accounts obvious. I mean, some of the wildest things to me was like an account called MAGA Nation. This is from the New York Times, with nearly 400,000 followers, was made in Eastern Europe. So it's not only like Muslim countries.
True. A lot of
it's all
Australia.
like, so why would European be like? That's just. Again, has bad intentions.
A lot of Australia.
There are other accounts that are specifically tied to the MAGA base, like from Thailand and Nigeria, Bangladesh. So I'm just really, right, I'm blown away by this. I actually think that as somebody who really liked X and before that Twitter, and understand that journalists were using it for a variety of reasons, and it turned into just a dumpster fire. To me, a dumpster fire once we were not correcting false information and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that a lot of that information doesn't even represent and reflect America is a great thing.
Right.
I think when we see at the same time, which we're about to talk about, like Marjorie Taylor Greene being able to call out and step away from her own party, or the American public being able to have real dialogue and discourse, and we're also going to talk about Mamdani and Trump in one room. Maybe that's more like America than we see on social media, which sometimes is the worst of us. Maybe a lot of the things when I was arguing that no actual Democratic leaders were bashing the fact that Charlie Kirk, or propelling the fact that Charlie Kirk should have been killed. Maybe that's actually representative of the average American, that everybody understands good versus bad for the most part, and that these bots or some of these accounts online are just disgusting people that are trying to fuel this division when everyone knows that political violence is never the answer. And so to me, if this uncovers more of that, then I would be happy to see a social media that doesn't prove to me that we are just in this disgusting space of hatred that it seems to be.
Well, and that's the key thing. They're fomenting incivility and racial resentment, and because the accounts in many cases are identified as America for American, pro-Trump, pro-Western values, that has allowed, in my view, the mainstream media to portray parts of the MAGA movement as very racist and very anti-Semitic and all of those things. These accounts posting this originate, you're right, not just in the Middle East, but all over the globe. They're not even in America. They're doing it to undermine us, and for money, frankly, because of X's monetization policies. That kind of stuff gets you money. So you and I could argue until we're blue in the faces about old Twitter versus new Twitter. I like Elon coming in and changing the moderation policies. I didn't like the old moderation, but he did change the verification system so that there's less reliability when someone's verified that they are who they say they are. And I think this is a great next step to that, to be able to confirm where the accounts are based. You can't, this isn't gospel truth, because you can have a VPN, there are ways around where the origins are, but my eyes were open. I mean, I had really in recent weeks come to suspect a lot of this was being pushed to us from outside the country, but this was very, very informative, and we should take this to heart now when we have discussions about, what does MAGA really stand for? What does America First really stand for? What does anybody really stand for?
And I think it's even bigger than that.
Where is this coming from?
And I know we have to go, but I think it's bigger than that too. There's a lot of things that are just tearing division in communities that have nothing to do with MAGA, that were discussed and brought to the light that these are not even American accounts that have a stake in like what happens with people of color in this country and things like that, but arguing the other side of some weird point. And so a lot of that was exposed over the weekend, and I think that that's a good thing.
Right.
A longtime Trump ally is resigning over the weekend after the MAGA tide apparently turned against her. We'll hear from Marjorie Taylor Greene next. A shocking revelation from Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene over the weekend.
She put out this video announcing she would be resigning from the House as of January. She gave a grim prediction for the Republican Party. Take a listen.
Standing up for American women who were raped at 14 years old, trafficked and used by rich, powerful men should not result in me being called a traitor and threatened by the President of the United States, whom I fought for. Republicans will likely lose the midterms and in turn be expected to defend the President against impeachment after he hatefully dumped tens of millions of dollars against me and tried to destroy me. It's all so absurd and completely unserious. I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better. I'll be resigning from office with my last day being January 5th, 2026.
Now that announcement comes after MTG went toe-to-toe with Trump on several occasions, recently speaking out against the administration and her fellow Republicans in Congress during the government shutdown, and as one of the few Republican signatories on the Epstein Files discharge petition. Following her announcement, ABC's Rachel Scott reported on X that Trump called her resignation, quote, "great news for the country." Scott continued, "I asked if she gave him any heads up. Nah, it doesn't matter, you know, but I think it's great. I think she should be happy," Trump said. Fellow Republican and MTG ally Thomas Massie responded to that in his own post, writing simply, "No, this is not great news for our country." And even some on the left lamented Green's decision to resign. The Young Turks' Cenk Uygur wrote on X, "I would have never imagined saying this, but don't go, stay and fight. Even though we still disagree on so many things, you are one of the few honest people in Congress. Stay and fight."
But some of her frequent targets in Congress weren't exactly sorry to see Green go. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez reacted on Instagram, saying in a story, quote, "She's carefully timing her departure just 1 to 2 days after her pension kicks in and after making millions of dollars in insider trading stocks for weapons manufacturers and others while in office." AOC continued, quote, "She is saying a lot, but her actions have not backed up the rhetoric. For all her talk, she's still voting with them to gut health care and advance self-dealing corruption schemes." And Jasmine Crockett, who has publicly clashed with Green on many occasions, has some criticism for the soon-to-be former Congresswoman on CNN. Take a look.
You know what? Honestly, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You're on the other side of the president for 1 week and you can't take the heat. Imagine what it is to sit in my shoes, to not only be on the opposite side of him, but to have people like her who are constantly fanning the flames of hate. It's just interesting that I don't know if she really fully understood how bad she was making it for other people. And now that they're doing it to her, you know, I just got to say, well, why is it that everyone else is able to stand and you can't?
I don't want to hear Jasmine Crockett complain about people fanning the flames of division after she incorrectly smeared half a dozen people of being Epstein associates and was the wrong Jeffrey Epstein, but we won't get into that story again. I am sorry to see MTG go. I think it is, while I don't always agree with her, in particular on the healthcare stuff, and even maybe on some of the Epstein stuff, although I fully support transparency and disclosing the files, I have maybe less knee-jerk trust in what some of the alleged victims have said. I appreciate her independent spirit. I think it would be better for politics, for Congress, for the operations of our government, if more of our elected representatives stood by their convictions and were not afraid to stand up to their leaders on both sides of the party, the Dem establishment on the Dem side and the Republican establishment, which I know people who love Trump hate this, but he is the Republican establishment. He runs the party. And I appreciate, and it should be fine to disagree without being branded a traitor and run out of the party. That said, if she has lost, politics is not a hobby. This is a very important work. And if she has lost the stomach for the fight, then she should resign. And I'll let you say your piece and then I'll give some more ideas about it.
Like I on the same page as you, I'm glad that she is speaking out for what she thinks is right. A lot of the issues that she's been speaking out against, I agree with. Like, as somebody who wasn't so interested in continuing to have this dialogue about the Epstein files outside of it becoming a circus, I started to wonder what people were hiding because of the attempt to try to condemn anybody who was going along with Massie to try to get this pushed forward. And when she became one of those people, I was like, okay, that's interesting. As well as the Democrats in Congress, I don't think that the government should have shut down, but I do think that healthcare cannot be pushed to the back burner, and the costs are rising and our system is broken, but doing nothing about it wasn't a solution. So there's a lot of things that Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying recently that I think are valid, and just thinking about those America First people that have real America problems. But at the same time, I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene is framing herself as a victim right now when she certainly helped build this environment. She talked a lot about herself on The View about how she contributed to what she called, quote, toxic politics. And so she understands some of the dialogue, even with Jasmine Crockett or other people, that she's contributed to not being the nicest person or not being the most amicable person across the aisle. And so when she's bashing President Trump for doing what she has supported and championed to other people, now that he's doing it to her, that kind of seems odd that she's going into the whole battered wife thing and really wants to lean into the victim when she's actually not an abused woman. She's just arguing with somebody who she's propelled to behave like this for years.
And I do think that comment, the battered wife comment, was a little revealing. I think she really cared for President Trump and supported his agenda and perceived him as a close, more than just a political ally, but friend. I don't know. I'm not privy to her, but reading this, I think she feels very personally betrayed. I think she's making it very personal, I'm not accusing her of doing that, but it feels personal to her when it's about politics and business and what's best for the country. I think she feels very personally about it. She used the language of like a breakup, a romantic relationship. I think she's hurt, and with her feelings so intermingled in where she's at politically, maybe then the best thing to do is to not be involved in Congress. If you know what I mean, if you're mixing the two things together, it's clearly not a good place for her. And kudos to her. I think she's recognizing that this participation in what's going on is not healthy for her, and she's deciding to get out. So fair enough. That's perfectly fine. Politics is not forever. I certainly wouldn't want to run for Congress, and we argue every day. Arguing with people is not pleasant always, and you don't want to. If you don't want to do it anymore, you don't want to do it anymore.
And then the biggest question for me is, what are the next steps? So initially, I was like, well, she's in an election year in 2026, so obviously her intention is to make sure that if President Trump is not that name that gets you over the finish line, to distance yourself a bit from the policies that maybe are not working to many that are also the voters. Now that she's not even running, I don't see a book or anything. I know that wouldn't come out already. I'm just kind of like, what's the end game? And you and I were talking in the break, like, where's she going with this? Because now I'm just like kind of flabbergasted about what's going on, like why she's so personal about this.
She might have seen internal polling that showed that without Trump's support or with Trump being against her or being in favor of her primary challenge, that she was going to get killed in her district. I have no idea that if that's the case. Maybe she would, like Massie,
ready to quit rather than get fired.
Yeah, well, there's some dignity in that you want me gone. You said you don't want me anymore to be on your team. Then fine, I'm gone. So I have no problem with her doing it, and I hope she remains. I think she's an interesting voice, and I hope she remains outspoken on the issues she thinks are important and can contribute to something constructive in our politics, just not from within Congress.
We'll see.
Next up, the newest Ken Burns documentary on the American Revolution was released last week. Met with some high praise, but not from conservatives. They say Burns is trying to rewrite history, make it woke. Don't go anywhere. Ken Burns, the legendary documentary filmmaker, has a new miniseries about the American Revolution. The 6-part series was released on PBS last week and received praise from many, but others are unhappy with some of its content.
The documentary prominently features Native Americans and makes a case for why their role in the revolution has not been given enough credit in the past. The focus on indigenous nations was celebrated by the Native American news outlet Native News Online, which writes, quote, "For generations, the story of the American Revolution has been told as thought it unfolded on an empty continent. Textbooks, documentaries, and popular histories have centered the founding fathers, their debates, their battles, their lofty ideals, while ignoring the indigenous nations whose homelands became the battlegrounds for a new republic. Native peoples were never bystanders to the revolutionary era. They were central to it."
Burns and his team almost present the theory that Benjamin Franklin took inspiration from the Iroquois Confederacy, a group of tribes that joined forces long before the revolution began. Some historians have suggested that the Iroquois system of government went on to influence Franklin and the other founding fathers. But the extent of that influence has been widely debated, and some conservatives criticized Burns for the way he presented the subject. National Review writer Dan McLaughlin says the Iroquois system, while sophisticated and forward-thinking for its day, was also nothing that would be recognizable to Westerners as a democracy, let alone some sort of precursor to our constitutional system. And Federalist magazine writer Adam Johnson says, well, this isn't about lies, truths, or half-truths. It's about propaganda, the most powerful of which is built on all three. Within the first moments of the documentary, we are immersed in a progressive framing. Propaganda works by controlling the lens through which we see things. I haven't seen the documentary, so I don't know how emphasized the Iroquois Confederacy thing is. If it's significant, then that would be a mistake, because Benjamin Franklin was aware of and appreciated the Iroquois Confederacy, and he's made remarks that if the Iroquois, 6 Native American tribes, could come together to form kind of one system, work together, then certainly the colonies should be able to do that. It didn't go much beyond that. Our founding documents were inspired by the Enlightenment and people like John Locke and Rousseau and all those, Montesquieu, all those British, French innovations in democracy. It was not a Native American origin. That's a kind of
in total,
wishcasting.
He spent, I believe, if I read correctly, like about a decade working on this. It's a 12-hour series, so I'm certain that we didn't focus on how much he copied off of the indigenous people. I'm certain that the magazine that pointed out, thank you for acknowledging Native American people, was pointing out that that's something that's overlooked far too often in our society. I think that Ken Burns has a style of this really intense director and a great editor, and we've seen a lot of the stuff that he does and puts forward. Doesn't mean you have to like it, but I know that he rooted this entire docuseries in academic scholarship. So you talk to people who actually study this way more than the people who write for the National Review or you or I, who study these type of topics. Those are called historians, and he spoke with some people across the board and aisle and doesn't pick a side politically. My question and my biggest concern is why people are so riled up when history is layered and exposed in all the ways. And as somebody who creates docuseries, particularly in Colorado most recently, about the Native Americans that lived there, and talk about a lot of the ways that there was loss of land, or how we violated them with the proclamation of 1763, or how the Trail of Tears happened, and all the things that America has done that displaced and pushed Native Americans out. Why acknowledging them then becomes a problem to places like the National Review? That's what I would say, that they maybe need to look in the mirror and watch the entire documentary.
We don't have a problem with acknowledging the Trail of Tears. We have a problem about
connection to wiping away their history to say it has nothing to do with ours. It certainly does.
We shouldn't wipe away their history, and we should acknowledge the injustices done to them without pretending that their traditions are what form the basis of our government, which is false history.
The entire docuseries is not about that. It's saying that there was an inkling of connection. Perhaps they're looking into that. That's the whole point of a documentary. It's not to tell you answers.
And by the way, there are historians that allege this. There are historians that allege this. Those historians were debunked. It was based on false information that they created those histories. Sometimes expert credentialed people doesn't mean they're correct. They're capable of lying.
That's why it's taking a decade to put this together, that he found a variety of resources to put this together. But again, it's up to the eye of the beholder. New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani met at the White House with President Trump on Friday, and things went surprisingly well. Stick around for more on that in my lens.
All right, Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
We're talking about frenemies. So the headline coming out of Friday's White House meeting wasn't just that New York Mayors-elect Zohran Mamdani and President Donald Trump finally sat down. It's that the meeting actually worked. And in a political climate where everything feels like a cage match, the fact that the two didn't turn this into pay-per-view is a plot twist that America and I did not see coming. For days, the expectation was gladiator-style confrontation, two men on opposite ends of the political spectrum trading blows. But instead of fireworks, we got civility, even a little chemistry. And that says something. Not everything in politics has to be a blood sport. Here's a bit from the meeting.
I just want to congratulate. I think you're going to have hopefully a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am, I will say. There's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. And we're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, having a strong and very safe New York. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay.
It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
what we saw on Friday was very on brand for Mamdani, whose superpower has been really charming skeptics and even straight up adversaries, from taxi drivers we've seen him with to real estate moguls and apparently even a president. Trump has always had a soft spot for winners, and Mamdani's underdog victory clearly caught his attention. His earlier digs, calling Mamdani a, quote, communist, now feel more like hazing than hostility. Now, these two men actually have more in common than either camp would admit. Both are populists, they're both outsiders and disruptors that question the establishment, and they both know firsthand that New York real estate prices could humble a billionaire and a democratic socialist in the same breath. By the time they stepped in front of the cameras, the tone was surprisingly cordial. Trump even said to a reporter after the meeting, quote, "We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job." That's something, especially from a president who, before the meeting and during the campaign trail for Mamdani, threatened to deport Mamdani. And on Sunday's Meet the Press, Mamdani didn't walk back anything he said in the past either.
Just to be very clear, do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do?
And that's something that I've said in the past, I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement about the politics that has brought us to this moment. And we also wanted to focus on what it could look like to deliver on a shared analysis of an affordability crisis for New Yorkers.
And that last line is the real story. Affordability, housing, childcare, groceries, the basic costs crushing people were at the heartbeat of Mamdani's campaign. And they're also very similar to the ones that Trump campaigned on. Now, when two politicians from totally different solar systems respond to the same pain points, maybe the country isn't as divided as the headlines suggest. Yes, they've traded insults for months. Yes, this meeting could have gone off the rails, but it didn't. And as a native New Yorker with families still navigating the chaos of the city, I can tell you, people actually welcome this moment. Not because they suddenly agree on politics, but because they're exhausted. Exhausted by partisan theater. Exhausted by leaders who seem more interested in scoring points than lowering costs. This wasn't a political love story. It was a grown-up one. A reminder that if two men who call each other everything but a child of God can sit down and talk affordability, maybe there's hope for the rest of these politicians.
Yeah, I was, I guess, a little surprised at how well they got along, but thinking about it more, Trump because Trump is such a star, he recognizes star power, and the truth is that Zohran Mamdani, while I don't like his ideas at all, and I wish he had not won.
Oh, just skip all that to say he's a star.
He does have a certain amount of, he has charisma and he has star power. It's clear that he does. And Trump appreciates that about him. I also think Trump clearly likes to be adored. He likes positive attention. He likes friendliness and warmth. And I think sometimes, but now that he's won totally over the Republican Party and the conservative movement, I think sometimes the praise he gets from his cabinet people or conservative talking heads is so sycophantic and so obligatory that it doesn't scratch that same itch. So to get, even some warmth from someone who totally disagrees with him, I think he kind of appreciates that more. He liked the guy. What can he say? He liked the guy. They got along, and I hope them getting along means good things for New York, and that would be fine.
It's so touch and go because I think why everyone was on edge is because we've seen leaders in the White House get completely berated, whether it was by J.D. Vance and Trump or just Trump, the president of Ukraine.
I mean, Zelensky's really the only one,
well,
though.
No, remember the president of South Africa came in there and they had news articles. They just completely lambasted that man. They didn't give him a chance to, they had a plan of attack that was going to be on national TV. So no one knew what was coming. Even with the attack on Marjorie Taylor Greene, you would think they would have sorted it out. This became a public
Well, but that wasn't
on,
to her face.
It wasn't to her face, but it became really public, and she even quit to that extent. So we know that he doesn't hold tongue for anybody. So why
he was complimenting the former ISIS fighter who now heads Syria, right? He likes to entertain people. He asked one Arab state leader recently how many wives he has, and joked about it, right? He's a content creator first. He's a reality TV star. He likes to create good television moments, and them getting along was one of them.
And I think I've seen a lot of pieces written by a lot of mainstream media, like, oh, New Yorkers don't want to see this. well, I don't know. I lived in New York my whole life, and most of my family still lives there. People certainly don't want to see nothing happen. I think with the stress and anxiety people have over the lack of things that Congress actually is accomplishing, people would like to see more dialogue happening. What are we going to do? I mean, we're still in year 1 of President Trump's presidency. Either we're going to work on something together or we're not. And we're not going to get anything accomplished. And so I think with Mamdani leaving there and seeming confident that he shared his philosophy, and he said this on Meet the Press about not having ICE come into New York, perhaps a dialogue can be had. And I always think that the president, who is where the buck should stop on everything and start because he's the leader of this country, should initiate that calm civil dialogue with mayors and governors of states before sending ICE or national troops into their cities and states. But since Mamdani called this meeting and came to the president and said that he has full trust in the NYPD to do its job and won't need any national troops anywhere to deal with immigration or anything else, it seems like the president said he will back off of that idea. And Mamdani feels confident that he will. So it's been interesting to see their dynamic. And like, is President Trump trying to send a message like, schedule a meeting with me and you'll get what you want? And to me, that's like so petty, but let's just please, because people really, a lot of people don't want the National Guard in their cities and states. And so maybe these meetings are more beneficial than you could think they might be. And that's a good thing.
Also, I don't agree, obviously, that Trump is a fascist, but the idea that, let's say he was a fascist and Mamdani is a socialist, the idea that fascists and socialists can't get along.
No, he called him a communist. He keeps calling Mamdani a communist.
Okay, the fascists, not fascist Germany and communist Soviet Union had a non-aggression principle initially in place. The fascist movement in Germany began as the National Socialist Party. The policies of fascism and socialism are not incompatible. They both involve massive government control of the means of production, the industries, the making the economy serve the nation. They're both anti-market ideologies. They have plenty in common. Now, I think they're both terrible ideologies, to be clear, but they get along with each other perfectly fine and have historically. So the idea that, if you're a socialist, you must hate a fascist and vice versa. No, too much of them agreeing is going to be bad for the economy. Let me tell you, that's how those things go down, because they start tinkering with the operations of markets, which are the only things that actually bring down prices and create prosperity. So I would not like to see I think it's a red-brown alliance. That's very scary.
I think that this is like that Joe Rogan thing playing out that we saw happen. How could you support Trump and how could you also support Bernie Sanders? Well, look, this is an example. I mean, they're in the office. They agree. I mean, President Trump has agreed to invest government funds into privatized companies.
And I hate
that is not particularly Republican, right?
It's fascist and socialist.
Okay, so maybe that's why my argument on Friday, which is why I wanted to talk about it again today with Amber, was that they are very similar. They are very similar policy-wise. President Trump has departed from a lot of what the traditional Republicans would do, but you call that anomaly something that's the new Republican Party. So it's going to be interesting, like I keep saying, to see what happens when he leaves, because a lot of what he does, even raising costs, raising our debt, all these things are not traditional conservative policies. So where does the party even stand after all this?
There are some aspects of traditional conservatism that I like having shaken up, particularly on the foreign policy side of things, where I think Trump has done a lot of good. On the economic side, I'm much less convinced, and I'm a little worried about any new fondness for socialism. It's bad even when it's a Republican idea. Next up, the Trump administration is defending the Ukraine-Russia peace plan after lawmakers alleged that the U.S. had little to no input in that plan. Stay with us. Negotiators for the U.S. and Ukraine have signaled that progress is being made in a peace deal to end the war between Ukraine and Russia. But there does seem to be some disagreement over how involved the U.S. has been in the plan.
Some lawmakers are claiming that the plan is essentially a, quote, Russian wish list rather than an American proposal. Here's South Dakota Senator Mike Brown speaking at a security forum in Canada over the weekend.
Secretary Rubio did make a phone call to us this afternoon. I think he made it very clear to us that we are the recipients of a proposal that was delivered to one of our representatives. It is not our recommendation. It is not our peace plan.
Later that evening, Senator Rounds appeared to backtrack on those comments. He posted on X, "I appreciate Secretary Rubio briefing us earlier today on their effort to bring about peace by relying on input from both Russia and Ukraine to arrive at a final deal." And Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended the plan, writing, "Ending a complex and deadly war such as the one in Ukraine requires an extensive exchange of serious and realistic ideas, and achieving a durable peace will require both sides to agree to difficult but necessary conditions. That is why we are and will continue to develop a list of potential ideas for ending this war based on input from both sides of the conflict." The peace proposal was authored by the U.S. It is offered as a strong framework for ongoing negotiations. It is based on input from the Russian side, but it is also based on previous and ongoing input from Ukraine.
But other lawmakers still feel that the plan is too favorable to Russia and that it will ask Ukraine to make unreasonable concessions. Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker says, quote, "This so-called peace plan has real problems, and I am highly skeptical it will achieve peace. Ukraine should not be forced to give up its lands to one of the world's most flagrant war criminals in Vladimir Putin. The size and disposition of Ukraine's armed forces is a sovereign choice for its government and people. And any assurances provided to Putin should not reward his malign behavior or undermine the security of the United States or allies. In particular, any suggestion that we can pursue arms control with a serial liar and killer like Putin should be treated with great skepticism."
According to the New York Times, President Trump has given Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky until Thursday to agree to the plan, but he did suggest it was not a final offer and the deadline could be extended if there was progress in the negotiations. I just don't... Look, what else do you want? They're not gonna win back Ukraine. If Putin is a serial liar, and yes, he is, but then what's the point of negotiating at all? Then they're gonna fight and they'll lose the whole country and Russia will conquer all of Ukraine. There's no alternative idea. Everyone who doesn't like this is unhelpful because they won't say what they want instead. What do they want instead? Tell me, what can we get instead? There's no answer to that. There's no solution.
You're saying there's no answer because Russia's just going to say no? Because I think there's a lot of things, like don't cede the land that Russia has taken already.
Then they'll take it by force.
So you're saying Russia's just going to say no to any type of negotiating. You're saying that Russia just is the end-all, be-all. They make all the decisions.
I'm saying it's this plan or Russia conquers all Ukraine.
Yeah, but you're saying that people are not providing another solution. Another solution would be go back to Russia and say, no, maybe you take this land, don't take these. Russia's like, we're taking everything they've ceded already, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, that's happening.
Anywhere around
that's
here.
done.
That's what I'm saying. So then there are other plans that have been proposed, but Russia is not even, they're completely ignoring it, and President Trump's not doing anything about Russia and the just sheer disrespect that they can just do whatever they want.
Not doing anything about what can be done about it.
He's called him to multiple meetings and said that he's the great negotiator. I don't know. If President Trump is the ultimate negotiator, then why can't he have a conversation with his friend?
He's got this is a great deal. It's a deal where all of Ukraine doesn't get conquered. That's the best deal you're going to get.
Mike Brown said specifically that this was authored by Russia with no Ukraine input and handed over on a platter to our leadership to take and sign off on and give to Ukraine. And now you're rushing Ukraine and telling them they have by our Thanksgiving to get this turned in and say yes to, when it's really a disaster that gives them nothing. It forces Ukraine to shrink its army. It also tells that NATO can come nowhere near Ukraine, so they're never going to be protected in that way if Russia decides to uptick this aggression again in the future. It's also rewarding a dictator that continued to push in on territory that pushes them closer to our allies in NATO, that make the wider population of Europe uncomfortable. And we're just rewarding it. Like, go ahead, do whatever you want.
There's no plan that doesn't reward it. They'll be rewarded because they won the reward. They won the battle.
You like Russian partisan influence dictating the documents that we present when we're the mediators and negotiators in conversations. You like
I would like to live in magical fairyland where we say, you're so mean, Mr. Putin, go back to your own country and withdraws from Ukraine. But that's never going to happen.
Fairyland. He said that he would solve this a few days into his presidency. We're now at Christmas time, basically. He hasn't solved it, and now he just gave in to say, Russia, do whatever you want. That is where we are. And so the larger message that we send to the rest of the world is,
saying
if you
Russia do whatever you want would be withdrawing entirely and letting the country fall to Russia, as it will, unless we get some kind of peace deal. If Trump thinks he can get a better deal, I trust him to attempt to do that. It's very difficult because Russia is winning this war, and it's winning it by default.
The president has threatened to cut off aid to Ukraine if they don't comply with this deal. How raggedy of behavior is that when you already berated the president of Ukraine multiple times in the Oval Office? This is the victim.
Money they're not entitled to.
I know, but they're not the aggressors of this.
They have no entitlement to our support.
They are not the aggressors of this war. And so the same energy that he meets Zelensky with, he should go to Putin with, because at the end of the day, the U.S. is supposed to be the superpower, and we're setting a precedence that Putin can continue to do whatever he wants. We're even going to allow him to join back into G8
and go across the.
We're not at war.
We're not at war with Russia.
But we're supplying.
If we were at war with Russia, then we would be committing troops Is that what you're in favor of?
No, our allies
You're right.
are
That's
in favor
what
of.
no one is in favor
Our
of.
allies in Europe that all joined in the meeting with the president of Ukraine at the White House, and all European allies came to talk to the president, are in favor of something that makes their surrounding lands that are close to Russia feel protected, that makes everybody that's in NATO feel protected. We've already seen Russia flying over airspace that is NATO. We've talked about the aggression being stepped up. Russia has a sheer lack of respect for not only President Trump, but America and all of our European allies. And so simply people are asking, if you're taking a handwritten plan directly from Russia and accepting all their propaganda within this plan and saying anything that you want, let's hand it over directly as is to Ukraine. And we're having senators like Mike Rounds go to a conference and say, we're just looking over reviewing this plan, but this came directly from Russia with no Ukraine say so at all. So that's not called a negotiation. That's called bending the knee.
If this is what ends the war, then let's do it. Let's end it. They're winning. They don't need to negotiate. Russia doesn't need to negotiate because it's just going to conquer all of the country. Russia. Is that, if you said, let's go with your plan, let's say, you know what, this isn't good enough for Ukraine, so no, we reject it and we're going to keep arming them. And then, okay, then Russia takes a little bit more territory a couple months from now. Let's say 2 years from now they've conquered all of Ukraine. Will you say, well, at least we tried? Like, would you feel good about yourself if that was the outcome?
I don't think.
Because that will be the outcome, I guarantee you.
Simmer down. I think Russia should not want to continue this war. It's also.
Russia should not want to. They do.
You act like it's not.
They do want to
resources.
continue.
We talked about this. It is. They do not want to continue.
That's a
They didn't even think that
fantasy.
Ukraine could continue out this long by pushing them back. Ukraine has not just been sitting along getting stomped over. We've been providing them with
You
materials
said
to
they
fight back.
shouldn't want to fight. But
No.
Putin, they is Vladimir Putin, and he does.
No.
He's not
He
losing
cannot
anything.
He cannot go on forever and continue to waste funds and resources. Like the same way that our economy is not at its highest, neither is theirs to continue to funnel money into this war. They thought that it would be easily won. And so
Adolf Hitler had the same hope when he tried to invade Russia. They lost millions in that war. The Russian side, they'll throw bodies at the machinery. That's what they've done in every major global conflict for 200 years and more.
Well, that shouldn't deserve a Nobel Peace Prize then, for somebody who just gives Russia everything they're looking for. That's not peace. That's allowing a dictator to win. That's my opinion.
Yeah, okay.
Next on Rising, did a Fox News host invite John Fetterman to dinner? We'll be right back after this. Did a Fox News host invite Democratic Senator John Fetterman over for dinner? Just days after President Donald Trump seemed to embrace New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani at the White House, Fox News host Kayleigh McEnany expressed her father's fondness of Fetterman. Take a look.
My dad is a bone-ribbed conservative, but he said to me, what I love about John Fetterman is he is a man who refuses to hate. He does not hate. He doesn't use the hateful rhetoric.
The way you described your father, it's like I would describe my father that same way. It's as a conservative, and he's probably watching this right now. They're big Fox fans.
And my dad said last night at our dinner we had after the Christmas tree lighting, he said, John Fetterman, he's someone who I wish was at this dinner table. I'd like that guy.
Between this and Mamdani's meeting with Trump, we would be witnessing some hope for America's political climate. Well, I think what we're witnessing is hope for the Republican Party to get another vote in the Senate. I'm now starting to sense that I think John Fetterman might join the Republicans. They're being so mean to him on the Democratic side, and the Republicans are being nice.
Well, he's like the MTG of the Democratic Party, right? Yeah. So Trump is being really mean to her. I don't know whether that's the right way to treat people. I don't want to speak to how other members of Congress are treating John Fetterman, but I do think that John Fetterman should perhaps consider being an independent. I mean, this is not without precedence. We have Kristen Sinema, who was a former senator who stepped away from being a Democrat to become independent because she broke away from a lot of things. We also have the very popular Joe Manchin in West Virginia, who stepped away from the Democratic Party to become independent because they both did like Marjorie Taylor Greene and started to rest on what they thought was a more accurate way to move forward rather than what the Democratic base was saying. And a lot of times they were criticized to no end until they left their job in government, but they still went with their conviction, and that's something that we both say that we agree. I think we should see more of these conversations, but the frustrating part is that if people voted for a Democrat, then they're expecting you to probably stay within the region of what's going on, the same way with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah. Trump was expecting her to stay within the region or the solar system of what's going on, and she's kind of like over there with it. So just being independent. I also know that I looked at a Quinnipiac poll that came out recently, and 54% of Democrats actually disapprove with the job that he's doing. in his state. And so if you have that and people voted for you and more than half are saying you're not doing a good job
More
for
than
us
half of
Democrats. Yeah, Democrats. I'm pointing to that. 62% of Republicans approve of what he's doing. Right. So therefore, either be a Republican or independent because your own party is disapproving of what you're doing.
He has to try to get reelected in the most closely divided state in the country between Republicans and Democrats, Pennsylvania. He, I think, is making rational political choices from the standpoint of remaining viable. Now, you're right, if the Democrats primaried him, he would probably lose a primary.
Right.
And
they're thinking about it.
But he's thinking about, how would I win the general if Democrats are unpopular? Remember, this is a state that Trump won last time around. This is the pivotal swing state, Pennsylvania.
Sure.
He's made Republicans like him more. In a general election, he'd be more likely to win re-election than he was to win election the first time. So he's making savvy moves for the general. Democrats should try to keep him in the fold, agree not to primary him, be a little nicer to him, he'll be a little more proximate to the party. That would be the winning strategy. They could primary him, then they'll have some far-left lunatic who will lose in the general election to Dr. Oz or whoever the Republican candidate is this time, right?
So you're speaking of that. Axios is actually reporting that there are Pennsylvania Democrats, a lot of them, that are maneuvering right now to potentially primary him.
To give the seat to Republicans.
No, they're trying to get Representative Conor Lamb to run against him, and they're thinking that that's going to be his challenge because he stepped away from the party. And if they do primary him and more than half of the base is like, you're not cutting it. It's like, Fetterman, do you want to be in Congress or not? Or do you want to change your political affiliation? Then he should just run as a Republican.
Well, if they try to primary him, he could. He'd be like, you know what? Look at me. I'm the Republican now.
He could. That's more of a dramatic switch than just being an independent. I mean, Bernie Sanders is an independent. You can be an independent.
Well, you can be nominally independent, but
He's registered I. He's registered I.
But not because he's so in the middle between Democrats and Republicans. He registers as an I to show his disaffection for the Democratic establishment, which he's been against all. But he is one of the most left-leaning members of Congress. He is to the Democratic Party's left. He's not an I because he's in between Dems and Republicans.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene, if she decides to change her mind, and John Fetterman should both go into that iosphere and just be whatever. The ionosphere. Yeah, just be whatever they want to be. That'll be your favorite type of politics if everyone just wasn't so politically aligned with one side and just voted on what they believed in, their morals, and who they're representing. I think we'd both be happier, right?
I would be happiest if everyone was...
didn't have a job.
Just cynically voting for libertarian policies for either because you're a true believer or because it's what's popular or because it's what's in your incentive, whatever it is.
I want to also say you're welcome to come to Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, thank you.
At my house.
Oh, well, very kind of you. And same if I was serving anything, but I'm not. I'll be elsewhere for Thanksgiving. That does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel so you never miss any of our content. And for those of you listening while on the go, we're available anywhere you listen to podcasts. See you back here tomorrow.